88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Weekends, and I am joined today by somebody else who isn't myself. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm CJ. It's been quite a while since I've been on this show. I needed a little hiatus, but I am back to have a conversation and have our hectic dialect.
Yes, it's going to be a really good time, and I'm very glad. I'm glad that you're back on. I think today is better than any day. I don't know why today is significant, but it felt like a good day. So
Yes.
Today is the day. And today, the day is we are going to be talking about the Indiana Jones series of movies, because it felt like you didn't seem like a natural pick, but you also didn't seem like you didn't seem like the unnatural pick to have as a guest on. So I figured I might as well just ask you to join in with me. And so I think...
Yeah, I'm not a fanatic, but I know it.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not a fanatic either, but I like the movies and they're well known. So it's like, can't go wrong. If anything, you could bring anybody on, but I'm glad it was you.
Thank you.
With that being said, I think it is time that we jump into the first movie of Indiana Jones, that being Raiders of the Lost Ark from 1981.
Yeah.
Available to watch on Disney Plus, because Disney owns everything now. Anyways, basic plot summary of Raiders of the Lost Ark, in case you couldn't tell by the title, and in case you've never heard of Indiana Jones before in your life.
Wow.
Imagine.
Got to be living under a rock for that.
Yeah.
At least growing up in America.
Yeah, that's for sure. So basic plot is it follows Indiana Jones, the guy in the title, as he goes for the Ark of the Covenant, the Lost Ark in the title. And he's also fighting the Nazis to get to that Lost Ark, because the Nazis could be considered the raiders of said Lost Ark. Although technically speaking, wouldn't Indiana Jones also be a raider of the Lost Ark? Because he's an archaeologist who's going after it in a way.
Yeah.
His goal is to keep it away from the Nazis, but at the same time, he's also going to be removing it from where it was.
Yeah.
So it's I think he counts as a raider, right?
I would call him a raider. I mean, whether he's hired for it or not, that's still raiding a place to take a precious artifact.
So yeah, it counts.
Point A to point B.
Point A to point B. So that doesn't really matter who's doing the raiding. It's just why they're doing the raiding. And speaking of who and what, I don't have anything to go off of that segue, but...
Good setup, man.
Thank you.
Flawless.
Okay, let me start off with something here. I think one detail about Raiders of the Lost Ark is that, okay, in terms of what they're looking for to find the Ark of the Covenant, and in terms of the steps they take to get there.
Yes.
And also in terms of the fact that I suppose when they're not running around punching Nazis, the movie can be a little hard to follow and runs the risk of getting boring.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing about those two details. When they're sitting around just talking about it and when they're trying to figure out all of the details, it can run the risk of getting confusing and boring.
Yeah.
That's every adventure movie.
Yes.
So it's that means that Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark is an adventure movie and not an action movie.
Yeah.
And it's not a political drama.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, you can't take forever to get to the adventuring, and it can't just be adventuring either. You need that balance, but there are definitely moments that are a little slow for this series, for sure.
For this series, yeah.
Especially in the last one.
Oh, I'm sure. But I mean, to be fair, Raiders is probably the one that strikes the balance really well out of all of them. It's the one, because it's the first one.
It's the standout. It's like how most first movies go. It's just kind of the one that tends to be the most balanced. And then they go, oh, we did great. We can make really crap ton of money out of this, but they kind of lose why it was magical,
Yeah.
what made it popular, what made it endearing to audiences. I think you really see that with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies after the first three. It just sort of like
Yeah.
goes downhill after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the same thing happens with the Indiana Jones series. Like they just sort of lose why they were popular.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
it was Spielberg who started the first, and I think he also just didn't want to keep going for the series either, if I remember correctly.
I think that'd be a pretty apt assessment, considering the fact that the first one, honestly, if it was just the first one, it would be just as iconic as it is right now.
Oh, it would still be super popular. I mean, you have an A-list cast, for crying out loud, like a whole bunch of big movie stars at a time where that was the thing to be. And also with, I can't believe his name is escaping me, the actor for Indiana Jones.
Harrison Ford,
of course I forget his name. The only one of the most famous people. And as the movies progress, you can kind of tell he's sort of getting tired of it.
Oh yeah.
He says that he really loves acting and still loves it, and you can tell that yes, he enjoys what he does, but I feel like even he was sort of kind of starting to get a little lost in the sauce too.
Yes.
If I'm using that phrase correctly.
I even if you aren't, I think it's again pretty apt.
For context to listeners, I'm an 80-year-old in the body of a 22-year-old, and I don't know modern lingo, so please
I don't
excuse any
don't worry about it.
of my incorrect references.
Modern lingo is the bane of my existence, and I prefer to use outdated lingo if I'm being completely honest. And I think it's interesting that you bring it up, because outdated is not what Harrison Ford's casting choice was.
No, he's still kicking it.
I mean more so in reference to the first movie.
Oh yeah,
like it's
sure.
It never grows outdated. It never really. You never really look back on it and go, man, his performance wasn't that good. It's like, no.
Oh, yeah, no, his performance is definitely timeless. His serious facial expressions, just...
And that his serious frumpiness and then the sudden transformation into a total smirk is what really sells him as an actor. I think it's one of the things that I didn't like about his performance in the Jack Ryan movies. And I had you on as a guest for that. So that was, you remember talking about those. But it's what makes Indiana Jones so much better.
Yeah.
It's what kind of makes him stand out. If I'm being honest, it makes you forget the fact that, at least partially in my opinion, Indiana Jones, the human being, is kind of an awful person, if you think about it.
Oh, yeah, he sucks as a person.
Oh, absolutely.
He's definitely an antagonistic protagonist, if anything. I wouldn't say quite anti-hero, but antagonistic protagonist, I think, is the best way to describe him.
He's definitely a jerk. He's definitely a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, we all love Captain Jack Sparrow, and Johnny Depp's portrayal of Captain Jack is like phenomenal. He makes him so lovable and so goofy. But, he's a pirate. That's not a good thing.
Yeah. And in the same vein, I mean, Indiana Jones, he's an archaeologist who kills people to get artifacts.
I mean, he's a theft with an archaeologist, disguise, I would say. I mean, he genuinely cares about artifacts as long as they're going to him or something towards, whatever he's getting paid for. Or whatever.
The museum.
Yeah.
And it's like, also, he, on the one hand, sure, he's fighting the Nazis and he disagrees with the Nazis, but he's also getting paid by the government.
Yeah.
And he really wants the Ark of the Covenant because he really wants the Ark of the Covenant. So it's like, sure, on the one hand, he's a nice guy. On the other hand, like, when he goes to find Marion Ravenwood, I mean, calling Indiana Jones a womanizer probably isn't the most...
That's putting it lightly.
Yes.
Yeah. He's not a good man.
No.
I think that could be said for characters like him and Captain Jack. Like, they're nice, but they're not good.
No. No, and some of their decisions, it's like you're rooting for them only because a lot of the alternatives are ones you don't want to root
I mean,
for.
I would say the same for James Bond even. Like, he's
Yeah.
not really a good guy or a bad guy. He's just kind of there, but he's definitely a serial womanizer, to put it that lightly.
Yes, but at the same time, he's also stopping the guy from blowing up the
But
earth.
he's also
so it's
stopping people from blowing up the earth. So he's kind of that ambiguous sort of like in the middle, but you still want to root for him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, overall. I mean, I suppose it was just like surprising because I'd argue over all of the examples we've given, I mean, even in comparing, yes, comparing Indiana Jones to
Wordage and verbals again.
yes, indeed. Comparing it from Captain Jack Sparrow and James Bond, I'd still say Indiana Jones is my favorite out of those examples because honestly, I think Harrison Ford's portrayal of him just sells it 10 times more than even Johnny Depp. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Johnny Depp's performance as Jack Sparrow, and Jack Sparrow is a really funny character, but he's also like. He's not very competent.
No, he's aloof. Yeah.
He's aloof. And James Bond.
He lucks his way into things.
Yes, all the time. James Bond is, I've only seen a couple of them, but to my memory, he's kind of just like, he doesn't think with his head.
He thinks with another thing, yeah.
Yes, he thinks with another thing, which ties into him being a serial womanizer, which we can't go too in detail to. But
a different head.
oh dear. But Indiana Jones, out of those two, I'd say is the most competent. He's the one who actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's able to, he's stronger. He's more capable in a lot of scenarios. He knows how to get out of them.
I would say for the James Bond, I think it also depends on the portrayal and what actor you're looking at, too.
Right.
I feel like Daniel Craig's is definitely a little more thought-provoking and
Sure.
more intelligent. And then, not to talk down any originals or any of the ones before, but they're a little more zany and a little more,
Sure.
out there.
Which kind of comes with the times, but at the same time, I've seen Dr. No, and to my memory, Sean Connery's James Bond was just like,
Oh, love Sean Connery.
oh, sure, Sean Connery's great. But I remember James Bond just kind of like getting captured half the time in that movie. And I think I watched the Pierce Brosnan one, GoldenEye, and it was like, I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember him just kind of drifting by.
Yeah, I think Pierce Brosnan, as wonderful as a person as he is, I think he definitely has struggles with some acting chops.
Right.
For sure.
Right. So it's like, again, it all comes down to the actor and the character. And
Exactly.
I think Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones is the perfect marriage that then makes it
Very good mix, yeah.
a really, really good mix. They couldn't have picked someone better. Now that we've gone on about that, I think, let me see here. Let me see here. For all of the things I said about Indiana Jones on Wednesday, and for all the things I've said about it now, just aside from the casting choice, I think one thing about this movie that honestly stands the test of time even better than that performance. Wait, how about you guess what I'm about to say? Take a wild guess. What part of Indiana Jones have you seen all over the place that you will recognize instantly?
Well, the role, him running out.
Okay, that's fair. But what happens during that scene? There's something that's happening concurrently. Think very bare bones.
Well, I mean, the score is definitely a big. That was my first thought.
Sure.
But yeah, score is definitely killer. I mean, anything with, I'd say, Spielberg, the score is gonna just be knockout.
Right, because most of the time he works with John Williams.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's gonna be that way.
Yeah.
But I'd argue, I mean, Williams also did the music for Star Wars, so it can sometimes,
which is some of the most iconic tracks in the
right, right. So half the time it's like it's either George Lucas or Spielberg.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good, and most of that comes down to John Williams. I would argue personally. Here's one of the things about the Star Wars soundtrack, right? People have said that it's like the thing that saved the movies, especially when they showed it to executives. Or I've heard that from my film professor. I don't know how true it is. For Star Wars. Yes.
Yeah, I could see that.
You could see that.
I could see that.
Could you see that for Indiana Jones? Because honestly, I feel like without the main theme.
Yeah, I could definitely see that when you say that. I mean, I think there's a big, before they went into all the CGI stuff for that series, a lot of the set design and props were very cunning.
Oh,
And
sure.
it's not quite like with the earliest film where you're like, oh my gosh, how did they do that? Like
Right.
how, a typewriter is typing by itself and it's a black and white film from like the 30s. But it's still really impressive what they pull off with what they had too. But yeah, when you mention it, I think the score definitely is probably the biggest saving grace in hiring Ford, for sure.
Right. What do you... Wait, I'm confused. Sorry. Let's back up really quickly. What did you mean by the typewriter thing? Do you mean like in terms of set design and comparing it to like movies that came before?
Comparing it to movies that came
Okay.
before, yeah. Not the actual movie. It's not from the 1930s.
No. And I was like, this is like the first example of it.
No. I'm referencing a bishop's wife. They have a typewriter that types by itself,
okay.
and it's from the 30s, and it's really impressive. And they pull stunts kind of similar to that, not quite to that degree of impressive.
Oh, I see why you're bringing that up with all the like mechanisms
Yes.
and all the booby traps and stuff like that in Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Because they didn't have the level of like CGI that we have these days, and they weren't really using it. At least to my memory, for the first film, unlike later films where they would use some of it and then really use a lot of it.
Oh yes.
But I think it definitely, the practical effects, there's the word I'm thinking of. But practical effects were very good in that film, and there's not really a lot of error that can really point out as just a regular moviegoer. As someone who like pays attention to detail, sometimes you might catch a few little things, but it's nothing like to really nitpick about.
Right.
I think they did really well on that, and just the overall look of the set. And the props. It definitely.
The whip.
Oh yeah,
The whip.
It made the world more believable.
Yes.
So huge props to
Huge props.
the design team. But yes, the score is definitely a huge component in its legacy.
Yeah, I think I understand all the points you brought up, essentially saying like visually it looks great, but auditorially, like this is unmatched.
Cinema, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to ask, when you said the hiring of Ford, did you mean to say Williams? Did you? I'm so confused.
No, Harrison Ford.
Right, you said in the hiring of Harrison Ford.
Yeah, bringing him on as the role.
Oh, okay. So I see See, I'm slow today.
Yeah.
And I think my brain is running on fumes.
Yeah, I feel like those are the three components. Hiring him,
Yeah.
the practical effects, and the score are really what make the movie.
Now I get you.
And then, and also like shout out to Spielberg, because I mean, I am definitely a sucker for Spielberg and his films. Like, he's incredibly impressive, whether it's animation or live action. He does a phenomenal job.
Yes, but those three components, Harrison Ford, sound design,
really make
music,
the film, yeah.
And the set. Yeah. I think one thing I brought up on Wednesday, one thing I yapped about extensively that kind of goes off of the set design to your point, is I've never noticed a palette in a movie more than when I was rewatching this movie.
Interesting.
I adore the palette for this movie. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love all of the browns, all the tans, all the yellows.
Nice not to have the blue filter on all that.
Yeah, it's nice to have better looking blues without the blue filter, you know? A lot of the blues look really good naturally on their own. They just like, they made it within the sets and built it in nicely into the sky. It's like so beautiful.
Yeah, I'll definitely give older movies that for sure. I'm definitely getting sick of the blue filter on modern movies.
Sure.
I get why they use it, but it is getting really exhausting, and there are different types of lighting techniques that are getting thrown out the window because of this.
Oh yes, it's like the more grittier brown filter these days is what I'm noticing.
Yes, sort of like a sepia tone.
Yeah, that's more what it is.
That's the best way to describe it.
It's funny because it's like Indiana Jones would probably be the one that would have the sepia filter, and yet it's set and its palette is like bright
full
and
of
bursting.
color.
It's like what this
bursting with it.
It's like that's what makes the movie better.
Yeah.
But it's like, why are we not going with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Am I confused? Yes. Am I enjoying it? Yes. I don't really care that it's not going with the thing it should be. Let's see here. Oh, One of my favorite, I mean, to get to your point about lighting, I suppose one thing I've really liked watching is the older Indiana Jones movies. Just, they had a better choice of lighting and they really knew how to frame Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Right. And by that, I mean the character. Of course, you have that opening scene where it doesn't show his face until like 3 minutes in.
Yeah.
That's always the thing the movies do.
Yeah.
And it's like the first movie was the best at it.
Yeah.
Especially that opening from the Paramount title card into an actual mountain. And then you have them making their way through some uninhabited area. It's like Raiders of the Lost Ark was the best one at it. It was the best, the one that did it the best. And it's like, it's such a small thing, but character introduction, super important. It's half the reason why I remember the guy.
Yeah. I think a part of why that feels that way too is because by the next movies we already know the character and there's
Yeah.
only so much hype you can do
Yeah.
for it. But I think there's definitely a level of hype that you can put for characters that are already put to screen that have a lot of hype already around them and a lot of love. I think Avengers Endgame is a really great example of that. Like
Right.
we've been with these characters for 20 plus years for crying out loud, and they really did a great job of framing everything back when Marvel was still good. Not to throw shade, this is the opinion of me personally, not of 88 the Burg. But yeah, I think there's definitely ways that you can frame already known characters and still make them new and feel fresh and exciting.
Sure. But in comparison, the other Indiana Jones movies just didn't do it.
They dropped the ball.
They
yeah.
dropped the ball in comparison to the first one for sure.
Yeah.
But that is a good point to raise. That you can still definitely do it. It's just that this
It's possible, they just don't do it.
they just don't do it. And that, I think, honestly, is proven in that aspect in a lot of other aspects.
Yeah, and didn't Spielberg not do the later ones?
No, he did.
Okay, so he did do them. Yeah, I just remember in an interview, he was like, I don't know, I was told to do this, so here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, all of that can be seen in the next movie we're going to be talking about, because I believe we should take a break now.
Yeah, we've been chatting for a bit.
We've been chatting. So I think it's most noticeable that he didn't want to do it and that they just kind of dropped the ball in introducing Jones himself and in a lot of other aspects in Temple of Doom. But we will be back very soon to get into that. 88 the Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan and I'm joined by
CJ.
Welcome. And for our second movie tonight, we are going to be talking about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom from 1984, available to watch on Disney Plus right now. For the basic plot summary of Temple of Doom, we follow Indiana Jones as he goes to India and becomes India Jones instead of Indiana. No, he goes to India and he is enlisted by a couple local villagers into going to a nearby palace and retrieving their special holy stone from an evil person.
As in he bought the locals, or?
No, as in he, wait, what?
You made it sound like he actually bought the locals as labor.
Well, I mean, he kidnapped their children and started
He
using
did.
them as child slaves. So in a
Yes.
way, technically, kind of.
Yes.
But anyways, Indiana Jones must go and stop this man. Wait, when did it make it sound like he bought them? When did I say that?
Just the wording of it.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, essentially. So anyways, this man has stolen their rock, and Indiana Jones must go and get the rock and also free the children from slavery, because that's not good. Anyway, so that's the plot of the movie, and that's what happens. And it certainly is a movie that exists.
It's like if Chitty Chitty Bang Bang were, if its plot were an Indiana Jones film.
I haven't seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and now I don't want to. When you describe it like that, I'm horrified.
You don't want to see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. You wouldn't like it.
Okay, fair enough.
It's got a great cast, but me knowing you personally, no.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
It would be too much for you.
yeah, well, I mean, I've seen some things that are too much for me, and
That's true.
it might not be too much. Is it too much in terms of it being annoying?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no. One thing that does make me annoyed, though, is so many things about Temple of Doom make me annoyed. I can't narrow it down to one. But the first thing, I think, is the tone mismatch. You have one thing we didn't go into, but something I covered extensively on Wednesday, is the fact that Raiders of the Lost Ark is a really campy, really funny movie when it wants to be. And the fact that Temple of Doom is not that makes me sad.
Yeah. Tonal whiplash.
Tonal whiplash, absolutely. Yeah. It's really frustrating in certain aspects because of how much of whiplash I'm feeling, because with its darker tone, I feel like it could have achieved something.
Yeah.
But
and being more serious, yeah.
Yeah, but it also had to follow up Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
And it's not really the franchise to do it in. And it's like, I don't care that it's working so much as the fact that it's not fitting at all, right? It's I'll put it to you. I'll put it this way. Here's the best example I can give. With Temple of Doom, it has that really famous scene where the guy pulls out somebody's heart. The main villain pulls out a guy's heart, and he's yelling Kali Ma over and over again. And it's like this very deep, dark, bright red, intense scene. As in, like, the lighting is very bright red to show the sinister evil of this mad villain.
Yeah.
And the music is so overbearing and loud and really sets the mood and the tone. And then once the man is lowered into the volcano and it's all full of death and destruction, it's all very, very tonally aligned with each other. And it tonally aligns with itself, but it doesn't tonally align with Indiana Jones. So no matter the fact that it is all working pretty seamlessly with each other as individual elements coming together to form a whole scene, it doesn't fit the movie itself, and it doesn't fit the movie that came before it, which is my biggest problem with Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
A lot of the rest of it is kind of small nitpicks. I will say that there is, let me see. Oh, I think a kind of nitpick is that this movie, to me, doesn't feel like an adventure because they just land in India and then are kind of shepherded around a bit. And it takes until like 20 minutes in for them to go, okay, how about you go to the palace and get our rock back?
Kind of staggered storytelling.
Yeah. Not in a good way either.
Yeah.
Because it tries to do what the first movie did, where it opens on a different adventure for the first 20 minutes set in China. But then when they just get to India, it's kind of just like, well, we're out of China now, so might as well do it.
That was, I think, the most off-putting thing for me watching it. Even as a kid, I was just like, okay, so we're here and then we're there. Why did we go from A to B?
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's as a kid, you know? It's just like, it's even off. If it's off-putting for a kid, then there's definitely a problem in it being, you know, stagnant in one place and then just hop, skip, and a jump, you know? Suddenly hard cut, you know, something else.
And it's like the first movie didn't have that problem at all. They gave a reason for going to every single location.
Well, yeah, there was cohesion in it and like reasoning.
Yeah. But Temple of Doom kind of fails in that. I mean, it's interesting that you bring up being a kid watching this because that brings up a very different point, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
One thing that's known about Temple of Doom is it is the reason that we have the PG-13 rating. One thing I wanted to mention with Raiders of the Lost Ark but didn't, but now feel is appropriate to mention in regards to Raiders of the Lost Ark. We were talking about if Raiders of the Lost Ark was the only one that existed.
Yeah.
And Temple of Doom never happened.
Yeah.
If Temple of Doom never happened, I think the PG-13 rating would still exist, honestly, because of the content in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
You have that ending scene, pretty well known at this point, where the Nazi's faces melt off.
Yeah.
It would have just taken them a couple other years. And even then, it was 3 years after the fact.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, sure, Temple of Doom claims that title, but I mean, one of them is a guy's heart beating and being ripped out of his stomach, which is a factual thing that happens. And the other is a guy's face being melted off.
Two very different things.
Very different things, both quite brutal and graphic for children to look at.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter that it doesn't really matter like the difference in it. It's still quite a lot for a child to handle. And honestly, I'd say Raiders was a bit more for a child to handle. And I think it was a little more gruesome in certain aspects that I think it would have happened anyways.
Well, yeah, the first one was just like whatever for me. The second one was like, huh, this seems like it might be a little bit much. Maybe not for me personally, but like it was
Sure.
just like there would be some movies that I would see with my girlfriends, you know, when I was younger, and they all were like freaking out.
Right.
Gremlins it would be my best example. Like all of them had nightmares, and I was pretty much the only kid who didn't. Not to talk myself up, by the way, but just to like emphasize, you know, that rating as being kind of needed.
Yeah, it was kind of definitely a thing that became a lot more useful back in the 80s, especially when this movie came out.
Especially with like movies like Jaws being, you know, not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, I honestly think, but I mean, you mentioned that the second one was the one where you go, okay, would you still think that Raiders of the Lost Ark would have pushed them to make the PG-13 rating? Because I feel like they could have done that.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't think it's. I mean, especially someone, you know, who is really into psychological horror now as, you know, an adult and through my teen years, you know, it seems pretty tame by comparison. But the important thing is to keep in mind that this was directed towards younger audiences, and getting as severe as to a face melting and, you know, a beating heart getting ripped out of someone, that's a bit graphic for, you know, your general younger audience, and probably shouldn't be digested.
Sure.
I mean, there is I can't remember if it was Hansel and Gretel or something like that movie, and it was incredibly graphic, and it was directed towards kids, and I think it was after the PG-13 rating, and they got away with a lot, like decapitation, big giant monsters eating heads off of people, and it was pretty bloody and gory, and even that was a bit much for me as a 5-year-old in the theater. Like, yeah, I think I want to leave now. This is a bit much. So I think even with the PG-13 rating, it doesn't, you know, get past all movies per se. But I do think it is necessary and important. Not like with the NC-17. I don't get that one.
Right. No. But I mean, like, I suppose I think you have kind of answered my question. It doesn't really matter which one did it.
Yeah.
It could have been either of them. It just so happens that Temple of Doom was the one that did it.
Yeah.
But honestly, looking back on it, I think retroactively we should give Raiders of the Lost Ark a PG-13 rating because we shouldn't have kids watching the face melt off part.
Not really, no. I don't think that's really appropriate or needed. That just feels like it's a little bit extra graphic just for graphic's sake. And that's not needed for a kid's movie.
No.
I mean, for crying out loud, for Monsters, Inc., there were different iterations of the scare scene that were so terrifying. Even the guy who was checking animations as an adult was like, that was even scary for me. Yeah, we're not putting that in a kid's movie.
That's fair.
So if even just an animated, you know, made up monster is freaking someone out, maybe we don't need a melting face for kids to see.
No. And we definitely don't really need the beating heart part, you know?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, although when we're getting into this territory, I mean, Bambi is rated G, and you have those, you know, dogs that are really horrifically drawn, but those were drawn by a 12-year-old. So it's interesting to just try and find the line between what is too much and what isn't as well.
Right. I don't remember. What do you mean the dogs? It's been so long since I've seen.
Well, Bambi was also long before PG-13 rating was around. But there's a scene with a bunch of wild hunting dogs, and they go after Bambi, and they're like, you know, biting after him, and they're, you know, gnawing on bits of him, and you're salivating. Obviously, it's not the most bloodiest scene or anything like that. But just the overall animation of the dogs can be pretty traumatizing,
right?
For kids, or even, you know, the scene with Snow White. I didn't really think about it as a kid, but apparently some parents think the scene with the trees where she goes in the forest for the first time and they're all freaking her out and haunting her, and it's like, ooh, and some people even think that's a little too much.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, mostly because I haven't seen those two movies that you're talking about. But
yeah, no worries.
It is important to bring that up, that sometimes even G stuff can be a little much.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it is, important to figure out where to draw the line. And
Yeah.
it's just interesting that Indiana Jones was one of the contributing factors to where to draw the line, when in reality, I think it should have been drawn before.
Much earlier.
Yes,
Yeah.
much earlier. It took us this long to get there. Don't think I like that.
Yeah, that's a bit too long, to be honest, for how long the film industry had already been around, which granted isn't all that long compared to other industries, but like that's a bit too long for it not to have had more variety in rating.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the reason this one feels more dark overall. I mean, I kind of want to move away from the rating thing, not because it's a bad conversation.
No,
but because
it's fine. We've closed that door.
we'll close the door and kind of go into some of the details about the movie itself. One thing I think that this movie kind of, how do I put it? It feels more grounded in a way. And by that, I mean, here's what I've wanted to say for a very long time. Well, not a very long time, a couple days. That's a long time.
So many years.
No, just a couple days, really. But it's important to say. Raiders of the Lost Ark, the main villains are Nazis, right? The actual Nazis. Whoa, not the fake ones. Anyways, they are confirmed to be the Nazis in World War II.
Yeah.
And yet, they are never shown to be doing the full extent of the awful things they do in Indiana Jones. Their full extent is, hello, Fraulein, help us find the Ark of the Covenant.
It's cringy, yeah. It's really cringe.
in a fun, pulpy way.
Yeah.
But in a way that hides a lot of their atrocities.
Yeah, the actual history, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that definitely pushed my buttons, for sure. That was a little frustrating.
I mean, it can be a little frustrating, but at the same time, it makes it a bit more fun, does it not, in certain aspects?
I can see how you say that, yes.
So you can see why I would then feel that it's not as fun to see a depiction of full-blown child slavery fully confirmed by the main villain. It doesn't really hide anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it feels a little extra for the sake of it.
For a kid's movie, yeah.
That's
It's not really even, and it's also not really giving any social commentary on anything. It's just there to be there, and that's the worst kind of,
Yeah, and I think I realized one thing I disliked about the child slavery thing so much is, so to back up a little bit with the plot, we've got the village that has the special stone or the special rock, or as I called it on Wednesday, a roan. Anyways, they have their little special stone, and the villain steals the stone. And he needs 5 of them to complete the something. And so he kidnaps all the kids and has them start digging to find the other 2 stones. Normally, in this kind of movie, you'd think, oh, they're setting it up so that later on the kids will find the other 2 stones. And it's kind of a deadline scenario of, oh no, they've found one of the other stones. They've got 4 out of 5 now. We need to hurry up. Oh no, they found all 5. What now? Does that happen in Temple of Doom? No. And it's kind of like, okay, if you weren't gonna find the stones, then you could have just not had the slaves in there. I mean, I would understand it more if they found them, but they don't.
And there's no big uh-oh moment.
No, it's just kind of there.
Kind of just there.
Yeah, I mean, the only real uh-oh moment was when Ki-Hoi Kwan, Shorty, was kidnapped and put to work there for all of 5 minutes. And even then, it's just kind of, why?
Yeah, you don't need it.
I mean, that brings up an important point, though. One thing I've just mentioned. One thing I can fully praise about Temple of Doom is Shorty, a.k.a. Ki-Hoi Kwan.
Oh, yeah.
I think I've talked about it before.
VIP of the movie.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'd say he's even better than Harrison Ford in some scenes.
Oh, yeah. Like, not a question. That kid got charm, man.
See, here's the thing. I think I've
And he still does to this day.
Oh, absolutely. One thing I think I've mentioned with you before is child acting is really difficult to do.
Yeah.
You really got to work with a kid and make sure they're having fun.
Yeah.
And I think Temple of Doom has an example of good child acting and bad child acting.
Yeah.
We have Ke Huy Quan, and then we have the prince, or the whatever his name is, who has a little voodoo doll of Indiana Jones and stabs it about 8 times at the end of the movie just to be an obstacle, and then he says one thing and that's it.
Yeah.
And even then it's like he's clearly just reading it, and it's like
it doesn't bring anything to the table either. Yeah, it doesn't really bring anything to the movie or anything like that. I mean, you have a lot of great child stars like with Home Alone and E.T., but
and Stand By Me.
Yes, but it doesn't. There's both one that's giving everything and one that's not giving anything, and it doesn't add to the story either.
No, but I mean, sometimes you can have a character that may not add to the story completely, like Shorty, and it's usually in the performance where it redeems itself. Yeah. I'd say Shorty redeems himself more than enough by by karate kicking a couple guys, and that was the fun part.
And just being a cute kid.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I will say one thing I saw recently that melted my heart to like 10 million pieces is I saw somebody interviewing Harrison Ford, and he was just on the red carpet, and he was just being his usual frumpy self. Yeah. And then Ke Huy Quan walks up to him and goes, "Oh, hello, how are you doing? You are the man who is responsible for my career." And Harrison was like, he went from like the gruff, frumpy face to like he was like on the verge of crying a waterfall. Aww. It was so fun. And he was like, "You don't need to thank me for anything. You did it all yourself. This is your achievement." And Ke Huy was just like refusing to not let Harrison take credit. He's like, "No, you're the reason I love acting. I love you so much for that. You showed me that acting was beautiful." And I'm just like, this is the reason why social media can be good sometimes, because it shows you things like this that I never would have seen otherwise. Yes. How coincidental that I was watching Temple of Doom recently and you decide to show it to me to that. No commentary on the fact that algorithms have determined my every move and are now serving me special content. I do not care if I see Ke Huy Quan and Harrison Ford. I am willing to put up with it for that alone. Anyways, I think one thing I want to close off with Temple of Doom that I didn't mention at all on Wednesday is the actress Kate Capshaw in this movie. She plays the character of Willie. She is probably the least helpful female character in any of these adventure movies. And she would be the least helpful Bond girl. She's the least helpful. Decorative. Not even that. Complaining. Not even. She just complains all the time, and it's really aggravating and frustrating. And I would say that she shouldn't have been in the movie. However, there's one redeeming factor about her, and that is the fact that this movie is how her and Steven Spielberg met. The actress Kate Capshaw and Steven Spielberg met while making this movie. And they got married a couple years later. Lovely. And they've been married ever since.
Aww. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it kind of redeems her awful performance. Kinda. Not fully. But I mean, at the same time, when I say awful performance, I mean awfully written character and difficult to perform, but also her performance is whiny woman, constantly unhelpful. So it's kind of like her performance was going to suck either way, and I don't really blame her for not doing a lot with the role. And the writing for women was just blatant sexism at the time, too. Sure. So, like, you know, there's not much you can get out of it. I mean, even then, though, I would say that this was George Lucas writing the screenplay. That's true. And he was really good at writing Princess Leia, so I think part of it had to do with George Lucas having gone through a divorce. That could be part of it. That's probably, sure. that side of him probably got, like, brought out because he was going through a divorce, if I'm being honest. I don't disagree that sometimes it was sexist, but I think with George Lucas being the example, it's like less likely, but it's probably the divorce. Which I forgot that he was the one who wrote that one. Yeah, and that's fair enough. I mean, I will say, if this is how you respond to going through divorce, George, maybe you should not write a movie when you're going through a divorce.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's really what you need to learn. And I think...
Unless it's a divorce movie.
Unless it's a divorce movie.
Like Marriage Story.
Oh, sure. But, I mean, I think, thankfully, the next movie in this that we'll be talking about tonight is one he didn't write when he was going through a divorce. And it made it a lot more fun because of that, which will be The Last Crusade. I think we are going to go to break now. We will be back soon to talk about the movie where they find the cup. So, yes, that one. That narrows it down. We'll be back soon. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, and I'm joined by...
CJ. Excuse me, pardon moi.
Welcome. I feel that, though, honestly. That yawn, that's... me every day. Oh boy, I'm gonna start yawning soon if I keep looking.
I know you're gonna catch it.
Oh yes, I'm gonna catch the chronic tired as if I don't already have it. Anyways,
we're both chronically tired. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I can tell you right now that one thing that alleviated my chronic tired was the next movie we're going to be talking about, which is the movie The Last Crusade from 1989, available to watch on Disney+. Although I should mention, it's not just The Last Crusade, it is Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, but don't feel like saying that every single time at the beginning, but I'm going to have to, just to clarify, because we're not talking about Captain Jack Sparrow and The Last Crusade, although it was kind of similar to the second movie. Anyways, if it isn't, I'm wrong. Don't really care. We're going to talk about the plot summary of Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade now. So, basic plot is it follows Indiana Jones and his friends, his friend Marcus, who is the museum coordinator, along with Sala. I think he was technically Arabian from the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. So those three get together because, well, they do get together eventually. I'm going to get to the basics of it. Indiana Jones's father, Henry Jones, has been kidnapped by the Nazis so that they can find the Holy Grail, and so they can use the Holy Grail to have invincibility or invulnerability or just unstoppability. And Indiana Jones must go and find the Nazis and find his father. It's great. It's great. So, that was the worst plot summary I've done in a very long time.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. But we can bounce back. We can easily bounce back. Here's the first thing about Last Crusade, right? As much as I dogged on Temple of Doom during the last review, I will say when I first finished watching it, I'm sitting there going, that wasn't awful. It could have been a lot worse. And keep in mind, I watched Temple of Doom back to back with Last Crusade, and I was basically started the first half of Crusade after watching Temple of Doom. The moment Last Crusade started, I'm sitting there going, okay, Temple of Doom looks a lot worse in comparison right now. If I'm being honest, it kind of blows it out of the water in nearly every department. Just the first 20 minutes alone with young Indiana Jones convinced me, yeah, no, that whole darker and eviler tone with Temple of Doom is not what they were supposed to go with. They were supposed to go with this very light, very cheesy, very campy direction. I will admit, it's a lot cheesier than the first movie. A lot cheesier. It's a lot goofier. It's a lot sillier. It may not be as serious, and it's trying not to take itself too seriously. Could almost be seen as an overcorrection. My counterpoint to that is if you don't like how funny and goofy and cheesy it is, in some aspects at the very least, you don't know how to have fun at least half the time. That's my counterpoint.
Man, Nathan, this movie sucks. It's too campy, too cheesy, and too funny. I don't like it.
You don't know how to have fun. Sounds to me like you're just a fun sponge.
Boo-hoo.
Or that, and here's one point I want to make about fun sponges. One of my favorite YouTubers, Cat Icarus, has always said one of his best jokes is that a fun sponge doesn't actually make any sense. Think about it. A fun sponge means that you soak up all of the fun.
Yeah.
And you get bigger because of it. So in reality, if you don't know how to have fun with The Last Crusade, you are a fun rain jacket. Anyways,
I think the good old party pooper is
Yeah, that too.
a little better.
That's a little better. That's definitely better. But I mean, Party Pooper would apply to somebody who doesn't enjoy Last Crusade even a little bit. I mean, come on, did you enjoy Raiders of the Lost Ark? If you didn't enjoy Raiders of the Lost Ark, then of course you're not going to enjoy Last Crusade. If you even remotely enjoyed Raiders of the Lost Ark, you're going to remotely enjoy Last Crusade. That's the facts. I keep going on about enjoyment. Let's narrow down why it's enjoyable. Let's do that. So I'm not just standing here saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
or sitting.
prove it to me, Nathan.
Prove it. I will prove it. Here's one thing about this movie. It's got Sean Connery playing Henry Jones. Now, aside from the fact that he talks like normal Sean Connery, I sometimes my Sean Connery impersonation is great. Sometimes it's awful.
Yeah.
But we persist. I think that, honestly speaking, this is the most degrading and most comical performance I've seen from Sean Connery. And that's coming from a guy who watched the movie Zardoz from the 70s. Oh,
gosh, not that movie.
Yeah, the one where he's wearing the red suit and the red suspenders.
No, don't bring that back. No.
I have to bring it back because all I have to say about it is that was less degrading to Sean Connery than Henry Jones, honestly.
Yikes.
Because in that movie, he was taking it seriously. In this movie, I don't think he's taking it all that seriously, for the better, right?
Just having fun like that guy in one of those Twilight movies.
Sure. Wait, which one?
I don't remember. It's the guy who laughs maniacally and is silly and kind of a little bit of a gay energy guy.
I haven't seen the Twilight movies.
Me neither. I've only seen clips.
Okay, fair enough.
I think it might have been Sean Connery, actually, who was
what?
in it.
Sean Connery in the Twilight movies.
I don't remember. He was one of the vampires, and he was laughing maniacally like a crazy maniac, and he's giggling, and he looked like he was the only person having fun on set.
Vampire laugh. What? Who? The Arrow. Twilight. I swear, if this is played by Sean Connery, I have to.
Just look up Sean Connery and look up his movie list and see if Twilight's on there.
No. Is this the guy? Is this him?
Yeah, that's the guy.
It's not Sean Connery.
What is it?
Michael Sheen.
Oh, close enough.
How dare you?
I'm just joking. I'm kidding.
I know. I mean, let's see. Wait, Michael Sheen is a Welsh actor. Wait, hang on.
Yeah.
Wait. Wait.
Are they both Welsh?
No. Oh, no. Sean Connery is Scottish.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I for some reason I would have flipped my lid if I thought that Sean Connery was Welsh for a second there. Okay, we've gotten completely off track. No,
Anyways, prove yourself. Prove why. Why is it a better movie?
It's better because Sean Connery being incompetent is probably the most rejuvenating thing I've seen all week. It's just him bumbling around and not being good in an action movie. And then when a plane is flying really close to the beach, he's like, let me pull out my umbrella and scare all of these seagulls to crash a plane into the side of a mountain.
He's definitely something else.
He's something else. That's part of it. I will also say, for the fact that he is... I think part of the reason it works is because in most of the Indiana Jones movies, Indy is the one. Have I mentioned, I love the fact that Indiana Jones's nickname is Indy.
Yeah.
That's just a great nickname. It feels so much more personal to just call him that.
It just makes me think of indie rock band or indie video game developer.
Yes, but I mean, you think of it and you just put the Y instead of the IE. And all of a sudden now you know, oh, it's Indiana Jones.
I like it as his nickname, though.
Oh, yes, it works. But usually Indy is the one who's the comedic guy. He says the funny one-liners or he does the jokes.
Yeah, the dry humor.
The dry humor. I think, honestly, with Last Crusade, Harrison Ford clearly understood the assignment and decided to be a little less dry and decided to be a little bit more messy, I suppose, in his portrayal. He seemed a little bit more insecure, a little more serious. And that was to complement Sean Connery playing his dad.
Yeah.
I think there was an adjustment there.
Kind of like, oh, why is this guy got to be here?
Yeah, like, oh, man, why do I got to go interact with him again? I haven't seen him for 20 years intentionally,
Yeah.
and now he's thrown into my life by being removed from it forcefully.
Yeah.
Now I need to go get him back into my life so that he doesn't die.
Yeah.
Great. It's clear that it's just like a whole conflict.
Doesn't want to be there type thing.
Yeah, but in a way of the character, not the actor. Because
Yes.
I think...
I think he had fun on set.
Oh, they had to have fun. I would have been so sad if I read somewhere that those two just didn't have fun together, because honestly, in their portrayal, it's pretty clear that they had to have fun.
Yeah.
I think it shows in more ways than one, I suppose. Now I could just imagine Sean Connery laughing every time he called Harrison Ford Jr. And just not being able to hold it in every single time. I think that would have been hilarious to see unfold. If there were bloopers from this movie, I would like to see them right now. Steven Spielberg, if you're listening, which you won't be, hi. Could I please have the bloopers for The Last Crusade?
Maybe it's on special features of the DVD.
Maybe. I'd have to get the DVD to see. I think, honestly, how do I put it? Let's see. I have less to say about Last Crusade because honestly, if I'm being truthful, I think it's better than Temple of Doom on a technical level and on a thematic level. But it's not better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. I just like it more and had more fun with it because it was trying to be funnier. It certainly is a lot cheesier than even Raiders of the Lost Ark was. And at its core, for at least the beginning part, it is basically Raiders of the Lost Ark again in a lot of ways. But once Sean Connery shows up, it pushes it into trying it to be its own thing enough to the point where I say it's not just a copy-paste again. It feels like a worthy enough sequel. But at the same time, it feels like a lot of what we got with Raiders, right? And that's kind of my proof of, sure, I may not be able to extensively prove it, but just saying it has Sean Connery in it and his performance is kind of the thing that makes it. It's kind of like, I will also admit, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm surprised I didn't write this down. One thing that I mentioned with Raiders that I should mention here is the music is basically an evolved version of the Raiders score.
Yeah,
and
it's not a copy-paste, but it's its own evolved version of the first.
Yeah, and I think I kind of like it more. I will still say the original is probably the more memorable one. But I definitely can tell that John Williams was trying really hard to kind of overcorrect after Temple of Doom and make something that sounded more like an evolution of the first movie. It's just essentially, you can see all aspects that we talked about in Raiders, where we talk about the set design, we talk about the tone, we talk about the casting, we talk about the music. You take all of that and you evolve it just a little more, and then you have Last Crusade. And it makes sense because it is supposed to be the sequel to Raiders, whereas Temple of Doom is the prequel. But then I just sit there going, I kind of wish that Temple of Doom didn't exist.
Yeah, not
and
needed.
We
yeah.
just had Last Crusade.
But then we wouldn't have had Key.
That's true. That's the redeeming factor. That's the redeeming factor. That's the...
Our redemption is Key's, 40, 50 year later comeback.
Yes. So good on that movie at the very least. Again, and also Steven Spielberg meeting his wife. So it's like, I only say that I wish it didn't happen.
Just outside of it being a film, it's redeeming, but the film itself is not redeeming.
No, whereas Last Crusade redeems itself by existing in the first place, honestly.
Yeah.
As a movie.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think, how do I narrow down? Okay. There's two big points I wanted to make. First is, when I watched this movie recently, it had been the first time I watched it. Because when I was a child, my parents didn't show me the Indiana Jones movies. I had the Lego Indiana Jones 2 video game. And I also had novelizations of Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade and Kingdom with the Crystal Skull. And my smart child brain thought that because there was a book, that meant that the book came first and the movies were based on the books.
No.
No, they were novelizations of the screenplay. Now, granted, usually when novelizations of screenplays happen, they can be earlier drafts. But it was a novelization of the screenplay. And I'm sitting there going, man, the book came first. I will say that meant that when I was watching The Last Crusade, I'm sitting there going, I vividly remember a couple of these scenes from the book. One of them is when Indy and his father are tied up and the German double agent girl gives him a kiss and Sean Connery says, she snores or she talks in her sleep.
Yeah, something funny.
Yeah, he says something funny. And I remember that being in the book and not getting it as a child. Now I understand the joke.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I remember one specific scene that I'm sure you'll remember from the movie, which is when Indy is walking along and he's following the guide left by his father to get to the Holy Grail. And it's something about taking the path of God.
Yes.
And he takes a step off and voila, it is revealed that there is a magic invisible bridge right there. Now, I remember being shown that scene when I was in middle school, but I had read the book. The novelization a long time beforehand.
Yeah.
And I had imagined it in my head pretty clearly. So when I saw the movie version, I'm sitting there going, this is not how I imagined it, but I kind of prefer this. Because in my head as a kid, I originally thought it was just a really thin, sharp, pointy rock. Kind of like walking on a razor's edge, quite literally.
Yeah, how they went about it is a little better than that.
Yeah, they painted it to look like the chasm below.
Yeah.
But it was just, it's that weird kind of fulfillment of finally watching the entire movie and getting to that scene in particular that kind of closes the loop on my childhood in a way of reading the book and just remembering that part. I've only ever read the book of it once, the novelization. I should say novelization because the book didn't come first. The book was based on the movies or, again, adapted from the screenplay. I already said that and then I messed it up by saying something completely different. Well. The point is that it just basically, what it did is it spoiled it, but weirdly didn't make the reveal any less impactful.
Yeah,
which
didn't ruin it.
No, which is a testament to the movie itself. If it ruins the movie, then
That's a problem.
That's a problem, and it means the movie isn't very good. If it doesn't, and I can still sit there and go, I love this movie. I love this. I love that. I love everything about it. Even though I remember most of it, that means the movie's doing something right. You know?
Yeah.
So, and that applies to more than just The Last Crusade, but it's definitely a unique example of it working, I would say. I've never said for once reading the novelization of the movie doesn't ruin it for me.
Yeah.
So that's a first. There's a first time for everything.
First for everything. Yay.
Yay. I mean, I should mention that when I said that I had the Lego Indiana Jones game, it was the second one, the one that had more to do with the most recent Indiana Jones movie at that time than the other three. Because I know there was the first one that just covered the first three movies. This one was based on the next and last movie we'll be talking about tonight, which is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, that was a movie.
That was a movie, and we'll talk about it after we come back from the break. Stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. Not What to Watch Wednesdays. That's the other show I have. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Weekends, and I am joined by
CJ.
I can't talk more than I normally can't talk today, apparently. What is going on with my words? Wording.
You
Yes.
can word.
I can word. You know what I can't word, apparently? They can't. This is such a. Reading the title of this, I just. Everything drains from my brain just reading the title, which is the next movie and the last movie we're talking about tonight, which is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull from 2008. Available to watch on Disney Plus right now. Basic plot of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is it's about Indiana Jones finding clues to go to find the Crystal Skull. and take the crystal skull back to the place that it came from. Because the crystal skull is the special artifact that must go back to where it came from, and yada da 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 da.
Ready to get into it?
No, yes, I have to. So, here's something I wanted to bring up with Last Crusade and Temple of Doom, and really Raiders of the Lost Ark. But since we're on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I haven't brought it up yet, I'll bring it up now. Whatever, might as well. Here's one thing that all the good Indiana Jones movies have in common, and the lackluster ones have in common. In the first Indiana Jones and in the Last Crusade, the artifact that was the focus point of the movie, you have the Lost Ark, the Ark of the Covenant, and then you have the Holy Grail. Now, ignoring for a second that both of them come from either Christian canon or Christian adjacent canon, because the Holy Grail is not in the Bible.
Nope.
We have a fact that both of them are being chased down by the Nazis for their use for evil. Now, the fact...
What an oxymoron.
Sure. Because the thing about these two artifacts is both of them are meant to be used by good people. They are holy items that would essentially be detrimental if used by the wrong people, but have a failsafe built in to protect themselves from the wrong people. They punish the wrong people when they use the things, such as in the Lost Ark, where the Nazis open it and their faces melt off, and in the Last Crusade, where they use the wrong Holy Grail. For some reason, I was wanting to say chalice or the cup, but I mean, close enough. They use the wrong grail and then they die, or they use the right grail, but they use it in the wrong way and it collapses the floor in, right? But they're not evil artifacts in and of themselves. They just shouldn't be used by evil people.
Yeah.
Temple of Doom, the artifacts, the stones, if you will, have the capacity to do some form of evil. And the people doing it are evil. And they're using them for evil. The Crystal Skull is similar in the fact that the KGB is using them for evil. Now, I will back up and say that I don't think the Crystal Skulls really had a failsafe for evil people, but at the same time, they didn't really have a failsafe for good people either. And I just find it interesting because the good ones kind of have that in common. The artifact that they're looking for is supposed to be good. And the artifact that
the pursuit is bad.
Right. Whereas in these ones, in Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull, which are the lackluster ones, they aren't exactly good artifacts in and of themselves. Sure, the people who had them originally are good, but they aren't really good.
They don't represent anything like righteous or pure or positive.
They're a lot more neutral, which kind of leads to the movies flopping a little bit. And that's how Crystal Skull feels, because it feels like Indy is dragged in, again, kind of just thrown into the story by the KGB, and is supposed to find the Crystal Skull, which is a neutral object, to do something with it. And I'll be honest, I'm giving myself some insurance here because I may not know for sure if the Crystal Skull is a bad item or if it's a good and righteous item, because if they wanted me to remember that, they should have done a better job at making an engaging plot.
Yeah.
They should have made it more interesting to watch, and they didn't do that. No. So that's their fault, not just mine. I can't blame myself if I am bored. If the movie is kind of boring, I'm going to get a little bored. Hey.
And the funny thing about us talking about that, because for the first 4 movies, I watched them when I was younger, and the last time I watched any of them was like maybe 12 or 13. And this one I don't remember.
Yeah, and that's fine. You don't really need to. See, here, I can kind of explain that. I can kind of explain why you probably don't remember it. For being an Indiana Jones movie, parts of it are painfully generic. Parts of it feel like any other adventure movie. Like I've seen the stuff they're going for multiple times. You know, you've got let's say for example, they're trying to find the doctor of this one, the guy who found the skull. And so they go to somewhere in Peru and they're going downstairs into this jail, and there's this jail cell area where these people are in there, and one of them is crying out for food, and Indiana Jones's sidekick, a guy named Mutt, because his name is Mutt.
That's funny.
Is looking at the guy behind the bar crying for food, and he looks all upset about it. And I'm like, oh, that will never impact his character ever. It's just there to be there and show that this is a prison. And I'm like, I've seen that so many times that I know it's not going to impact his character. That's how many times I've seen it. That will never be brought up again. They're just doing it for the sake of it. And then it's like, oh, here's a waterfall. Let's go down a waterfall and survive the waterfall somehow. And hey, let's go to the place and do the thing. Hey, let's go to here and do this. And
Just very generic.
very generic. I mean, there are parts of it that aren't, like the part where they're fencing on top of cars, or there's ants everywhere.
Yeah, definitely don't remember the fencing on cars.
You don't remember the ants crawling into the guy's mouth, or the
I can picture the ants. Probably.
Yeah, it's a well-known moment from that movie.
But yeah, as much as I like, what I remember for sure is that I know I've seen it, and I recognize the title, and now that you bring up the ants, I remember the ants. But that's about as good as it gets right now.
Right. So I suppose you won't remember. Here's one. Okay. How do I condense some of my thoughts here? I'll do my best. Let's start with. How about I just go through a plot summary? Because I remember playing the Lego video game, and I played all 3 chapters that were associated with this movie.
Go for it.
We'll do that. We'll do that. So you remember the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they put the Ark in the box and put it in that warehouse, right?
Yeah.
Very famous part. Famous way to end the movie. So the opening of the movie is Indy and his Australian friend Mac are kidnapped by the KGB in the 50s and taken to this warehouse. And they go and find the crystal skull, or they go and find the Roswell body that is an alien body or something. And then Indiana Jones escapes, and he goes to a mannequin town where they're testing a nuclear bomb, which, by the way, is the dumbest scene in the movie because he hides in a lead fridge to survive a nuclear blast. First of all, you shouldn't survive. Second of all, why did you make an entire town of mannequins to test a nuke? To see how much the town will be blown up by the nuke? Let me newsflash, genius. It's a nuke. Yeah. It's gonna destroy everything. Just because you put Plaster Man and Mr. Mailman and the ice cream dude made out of plastic in the town doesn't mean the town's not gonna be destroyed by a nuke. Anyways, so he escapes the nuke town in a lead-lined fridge because, of course, he does. Here,
let me put this frog in a boiling pot and see how that goes. Will it die?
Yes, eventually. You just got to make sure to turn up the water. But see, this is like, I know what you're going for with that analogy. So think of it like this. It's more like, hey, will this frog die if I put it in this pot of boiling water? Harry, you just threw the frog into the wood. No. You threw the frog onto the stove top with no pot there. You forgot the pot.
If I chuck this hamster out of the window, will it survive?
This is horrible. We're just using weird analogies to describe animals dying when talking about Indiana Jones. But it's certainly more entertaining than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Anyways, going on from the mannequin scene, we go on to the fact that Indiana Jones goes back to the university to be a teacher, and then is fired from being a teacher. And then he decides to go somewhere. But then when he's on the train, because it's a movie set in the 50s and it's a quote unquote period piece, they need to have a scene in a train. I've seen a train in period movies so many times that I'm going to make a period movie and not include a train because of how annoyed I am at seeing it in every single darn period movie.
Just for that purpose. Just to not have a train. The only good train scene I've seen in a period movie was in Once Upon a Time in the West, and that's because it had a guy with a harmonica. Anyways, Charles Bronson. Moving on. We follow Indiana Jones on a train, and he gets picked up by Mutt, played by Shia LaBeouf. The wonderful Shia LaBeouf. Oh, yeah. I totally blocked that out of my memory, too.
Good. So Shia LaBeouf picks him up and takes
Now
him.
that you say it, I remember he was in it.
Yeah, he takes him to a diner, and they talk about why Mutt is finding him.
Oh my gosh, I'm remembering the movie now.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Anyways, Mutt tells him,
Yeah.
hey, my adoptive father told me about this crystal skull, and now he's gone, and my mom sent me a letter. Oh, haha, let's go do something. And then they, in the next 30 seconds, they get into a bar fight and then run out of the bar. And I remember that only because in the Lego video game, that was an entire level. The whole fight in a cafe or a bar or whatever it was an entire level in and of itself that took me about like an hour to beat as a child.
Oh,
In the movie,
that's not long.
No, I mean, in the movie itself, it goes, hey, Mutt, punch this college kid. Then that's my boyfriend, throws another punch. And then it goes, get this greaser, bottle breaks. That I've just described the entire bar fight scene, because then Indy and Mutt run out of there and go on a motorcycle and go on a motorcycle chase. Great. They go on a motorcycle chase. They get out on a motorcycle. And what happens next? I can't remember what happens directly after that. What I do remember is that at some point they end up in a camp with a tent. And I have to stand up now because I'm getting bored. You standing up is making me want to stand up because
legs are definitely feeling it right now.
Yes. So they go to a tent and they have the adoptive father there, and it's like, here is an alien, which, okay, now I need to break into actual review mode really quickly. Here's the thing that I mentioned earlier about how it's kind of a coincidence that the two good Indiana Jones movies involve an artifact in the Christian canon or Christian adjacent canon.
Yeah.
Based on some form of Christianity.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the detail of why I think that could be the contributing factor. What I can tell you is it's sure a lot more entertaining to watch than actual aliens, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Because it feels really stupid to have aliens in Indiana Jones.
And cheap.
Cheap, that too. It's just kind of like, aliens.
No wonder I forgot it.
It's like, great. Why did we have this again? We could just not do that. So they find an alien, and then Indiana Jones is brainwashed by the crystal skull and by looking at it. Cool. And then it's like, take us to where we put the skull. No. Okay, here's Marion, the girl from the first movie. The girl that Indy used to like and was his like companion in the first movie. She's brought back for the sake of nostalgia and nostalgia only. I'm happy to see the actress again, but the character didn't need to be in there. And then it's revealed, haha, we're in quicksand. In an Indiana Jones movie. Okay, this is frustrating to me because quicksand. You're going to do quicksand in Indiana Jones. See, this is what I mean when I say this movie's slightly generic. Quicksand. And they say, oh, no, it's just it's lightning sand or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember that.
They try to say it's not quicksand, but it's quicksand.
Yeah.
It annoyed me because then it's like then it's time for Dr. Indiana Jones to describe why it's different because it has mud. And I'm like, I'm not laughing.
Yeah.
Shut up.
It definitely reminds me of a quote from online where they were like, oh, yeah, one of the biggest fears when I was like 5 was quicksand, and now it's just taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Indiana Jones doing his taxes would have been more entertaining, which reminds me of an old YouTube video.
Yeah, because like, when are you going to, drive under the road and run into, oh, shoot, my car got taken by quicksand, man. It was just right there. Instead of a pothole, it's just quicksand.
Sure. It's just it's also just a trope in adventure stuff.
It is.
And it's like, why put it in Indiana Jones, the thing that invented adventure tropes?
Yeah.
Right? Like reinvented them.
And that's not like a new trope either. That's been around for the longest time since film was new. Like
they just lost it. I mean,
it was very boring, yeah.
Did I mention the fact that during this quicksand scene, Marion says, oh, by the way, Indy, Mutt is your son?
Yeah, no, you didn't tell me that on air, but I'm remembering this, yeah.
Yeah, I already knew that being the twist, because again, I read the novelization.
Oh, you could see it a mile away anyway.
Oh, sure. I mean, Would I have known that when watching? No, I would have, because when they're in that cafe, he's like,
No, it's so obvious.
My
in the
mother's
cafe.
Marion. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of it's just like, oh, that's Marion from the first movie. Look at that. How obvious.
Yeah.
I probably would have been more annoyed if I didn't know that twist was coming.
Yeah.
What else happens after that?
It's so funny because they reference Shia LaBeouf's character in the 5th movie, and I'm like, who is this guy they're talking about? Because I forgot all about what happened in this movie.
So
And they reference him kind of heavily in the beginning and end.
really, wow.
Not throughout the whole movie, but just in those parts.
Is he like dead? And they're just referencing him?
Yeah.
What?
I'm like, who's this guy that they keep talking about?
Of course, Mutt dies.
What do you mean he had a son?
He did. And it's just like the worst father-son relationship I've
It's
seen.
the worst. It's so bad. They have no chemistry, either the actors.
Well, I'll say it this way. At first, they have decent chemistry. Then when Indiana Jones is clearly just like, call me dad, it's like, okay, now you've lost me.
Yeah.
Just stop. I mean, at least...
I am your father.
Of course, yeah.
I had to. It's May
Yes, you
for
did.
crying out loud.
Yes, you did have to. Wait. It's May the 3rd. Tomorrow's May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you.
This is more fun than the movie is, honestly. And I had fun with this movie. One thing you need to understand is I hated this movie. It was so bad.
But it was so fun.
I was smiling the entire time.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I was just sitting there going, you have mangled and destroyed everything I loved. Thank you. You have closed the loop on my childhood by making me realize I don't feel bad that I never saw this movie. I'm never watching it again. I love this. I am adoring the fact.
It's like that train wreck you can't keep your eyes off of.
No, okay. Here's the biggest reason why it was this way.
Okay.
Everything I've just described, how generic it is, the performance and the writing and the story just not being there. Because I don't remember why they were doing any of this. I didn't care. It's just like, let's find the skull. Why? Let's find the skull. What? Okay, let's go find the...
For what?
Let's find the prison cell that has the key to the skull. Okay.
Yeah.
Am I following? No. You've mentioned like 3 different things, like conquistadors and the Aztecs. I've lost track. I don't care anymore. Go
Yeah.
away. I will say Shia LaBeouf, his performance isn't bad. It's just kind
He's
of...
a great actor, yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
He's just there. And he also just asks, what's this? Constantly. That I just tuned out the story because of him. I tuned out all the exposition. But none of that compares to what I think is the best and worst part of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Cinematography-wise, you've got really fluid movements. You've got the same level of dedication that the other movies had in certain shots. And some of it just isn't that good. Now, when it's moving nicely, how do I do? No, let me back up and say this. It moves nicely, but there are shots in this movie that look really good for 2008. You've got this really nice focal point. You've got this great perspective. You've got this great appearance. And then it will cut to a shot that looks like it was filmed on a potato smeared in Vaseline and dipped in hot wax.
Uh-oh.
And then it will cut back like 4 more shots later and it will go back to looking good. And I love
That's
that.
visual whiplash, though.
Yes, it is. But I love it because it is the most visually inconsistent movie I think I've ever seen. Half the time, the lighting just looks bad. It's just like the worst lighting I've ever seen in my life. And then the other times, it's like, okay, for about every 15 bad shots that look like the movie Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, where all of it is done on a green screen and all of the lighting is bright and in your face to cover it up, but doesn't do a good job of covering it up, so it just looks more bad.
Yeah.
There is like one shot that's like, oh, this is a Steven Spielberg movie. I completely forgot about that for a second.
It's a good Murphy.
It's a good movie. Yes. So good. Spurved me. I don't know. It was so hilarious how bad it was. I think I'm very glad I could say that I could tell Harrison Ford was just having fun with this movie because he clearly was just like,
Oh, yeah.
do I have to act? No, I can be a bad actor for once. Let's just do that. They're paying me a bunch of money to be in another darn Indiana Jones movie, so I'll just
Might as well have fun with it.
Yeah, not try and just do it. I think the closing statement I want to make with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I have so many notes written down, but keep in mind, I enjoyed how bad this was. When I was a child, I played the Lego Indiana Jones 2 Kingdom of the Crystal Skull video game, and I got to the very end of that movie in the video game. In the actual movie, the way it ends is I think Kate Blanchett, KGB lady, gets her brain blown up by the alternate dimensional alien person thing, and it's so stupid. In the Lego video game, she gets blown up, and then there's a little crystal skull alien in a little tiny UFO, and he pops up and he goes, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, goodness.
And he flies away.
That's funny.
I wanted that to be the way this movie ended. It doesn't, but that would have been a better ending. And I'm sad it didn't happen that way. I kind of want to go back and play the video game.
That's why it's a bad movie.
It didn't have the little crystal alien going blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to close off What's Watch Weekends tonight. Thank you all for listening in. Blah, 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 blah.
Adios, amigos.
Adios. Well, before we go really quickly, I wanted to say thank you for being on tonight, CJ. Had a lot of fun.
Of course. It's always a joy to be on here.
Yes, great to have you on. For those of you, thank you all for listening in. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Wednesdays and What to Watch Weekends. I will be back this upcoming Wednesday for another episode of What to Watch Wednesdays, and next Saturday for another episode of What to Watch Weekends. If you're interested in following along with either show, follow What to Watch Wednesdays on both Instagram and YouTube at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. And I will be back this upcoming Wednesday telling you all what to watch. Good night, everybody.